Hi, Maurice here again with episode 4 in my stray voltage testing series. This isn't actually the episode that I intended to make, but while I was setting up the oscilloscope this morning, I'm embarrassed to say I got a really bad shock from it, and specifically off the leads of the oscilloscope. And if you recall back in episode 1, or maybe you might even want to go and review it now, the way these oscilloscopes are used for this test is they have the earth pin cut off the plug. If you recall, I haven't done that. I've put a switch in to simulate cutting that earth pin off and losing the earth connection on the scope. I would never ever use the scope anywhere but in my own workshop in this way. So while I was setting up for the test that I planned to do in this episode, I got quite a bad electric shock from the scope. The scope wasn't turned on, but it was plugged in and powered up. So I brought out my multimeter. With all this talk of stray voltage and high frequency waveforms, etc, 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 I really hope that we haven't lost sight of the fact that a multimeter should be your go-to instrument for anything to do with safety or voltage issues or whatever. So I'm actually reluctant to touch this now because it was quite a shock. I guess what I'll do, you won't be able to see the display on the multimeter the way this shot's framed up at the moment, so I'll stop the camera, I'll zoom in so I just show the scope on the multimeter and we'll do some tests. Okay, thanks. Back in a minute. Back again. I hope the noise of the rain on the roof doesn't drown my voice out. It's getting quite heavy. Okay, so let me turn on my multimeter to start with. And just to make it clearer for the video, I'll turn on the backlight. Now we've got a few millivolts there. I think it's just normal drift from the multimeter. Let me short the probes, and we've got 1.2 millivolts, so I could recalibrate the multimeter and zero that out, but let's just remember to allow a 1.2 millivolt difference between what we see on the screen and what's actually there. I don't think we'll worry about that too much. I don't think even a cow would feel that. So, since I got the shock this morning, which hurt quite a lot, I've been much more careful about the way that I handle the scope probe. So I'm connected to the scope probe, and you can see, even without me putting the other multimeter lead anywhere, I'm getting very high voltages there. So I'm going to go into the earth on my power board. Now this is the same as the pipe work in a shed. Same thing, it's earthed to the general mass of earth. So is this, and we've got 194.8 volts. Every time a test is performed in a dairy shed with this meter, with the earth pin cut off the plug, as is standard, I believe, for this type of test, they're putting 194.8 volts into the pipe work in the shed. Words fail me a little bit. Anyway, let's just see if it makes any difference when I turn the scope on. I suspect it may do, but let's see. Yeah, okay, it does. It drops it a bit. I don't know why. I don't know enough about the internal circuitry in the scope to know why. 110 volts is still going to hurt a lot, and when the stray voltage tests are looking for half a volt or 1 volt or 2 volts, 111 volts is an enormous amount. This is a safety issue. Please, if you see this video and you know anybody that's using one of these scopes and doing these tests, please make them aware of the video, send them a link to it, let them view it. If there's anybody out there who doesn't believe these tests, please repeat them. I'm not doing anything to influence the outcome of the test. This is what it is. I know it's real and I know there's a substantial amount of current behind it, because my goodness, I felt it this morning. And the reason I haven't experienced it before is I was actually holding on to an earthed piece of metal with my other hand this morning and happened to touch the scope probe, and my goodness, I certainly did feel it. So there we have it. Regardless of any of the other arguments about the validity of the test or whatever, this isn't about that. This is a safety issue. But this, just to reiterate, and I'm probably repeating myself needlessly, but this scope is putting, when it's turned on, we'll assume it's turned on for the test, it's putting 116 volts into the pipework of the shed. I would go so far as to say that this, regardless of anything else about the test, this isn't a valid instrument to do it with. It's, well, actually, something I just thought of is I should try earthing it. Well, yeah, no, that's much better, but it's still putting 324 millivolts out. It's putting it out. That's what's coming out on this scope probe. And that's with the earth connection made. I do not believe this scope can be used for this test. It just is an unsuitable instrument for the test, basically. So there we have it. I've run out of things to say. Please repeat the test yourself if you don't believe it. Thanks very much. Bye.